Hello and welcome to the NOTstalgia podcast.
A podcast discussing the retelling or continuation of pop culture favorites as seen through a queer and feminist lens.
My name is Eric Lefebvre.
And my name is Jessica Tercero.
And this week we are in our third Halloween season. This is third. We're coming up on the third season, so this is what, 3 years?
This is 3 years. This episode should be our 3-year anniversary.
Ooh,
so look at us.
3 years of consistent. Yeah, and we do it. I don't think we've taken like one small break. Other than that, it's been consistent.
We took a small break in June 2020. And other than that, I don't think we've missed 1 week.
I don't think so.
Yeah. So
but we're back. It's Halloween time. Celebrate us on this third season.
We decided that we are going to put a ring on it. We're going to put a ring for 3 years now. So I guess it's time, commitment wise. So we're here.
Time, and get the fuck ready because we are talking about Ring and the Ring. We're talking about the original Japanese film of the same name and its American remake within several years.
Eric, you've been wanting to do this forever.
So, last October, I had propositioned doing The Ring and Ringu as because The Ring was one of my favorite scary movies as a kid.
I think even on our 1-year anniversary, you were like, let's do this.
I was
like, I don't know if I'm ready.
Yeah.
But now I've built up that, that tolerance. And now I'm just like, yeah, let's go.
Do it. Because it's also one of the ones when we first started this podcast that, I've always wanted to watch Ringu. I've never watched the original. And I've always wanted to. But then since we were doing this, I was like, I'm going to wait. And I'm going to watch it for the first time for the podcast, which we did. And it was such a treat. And I'm really happy I got to. Because it's been one of those. I mean, similarly with, Ju-on and The Grudge.
Yeah.
I've been wanting to watch. I've never seen that. I've never seen either one of them, and I've wanted to see them both for the longest time. And so maybe later we'll talk about it. But
OMG, make our dreams come true.
I know, but yeah, The Ring. Jess, what is your history with this idea, with the series, with this stuff?
As a child, I had violent night terrors, and I would also sleepwalk and stuff. So, in fact, one time I had surgery. And I had to have pins put in my my finger because it broke in a weird ass way. And I had a night terror in the hospital while I was flailing about with my cast on. And apparently I almost knocked a nurse out. She got hit in the head and almost got knocked out because I had this violent night terror. Anyways, all that to say, y'all know that I growing up did not watch scary movies. So that was not a thing that I did. The Ring, when it came out, for some reason, was an exception. I think maybe I had one of my awful boyfriends made me watch this with him because I can't think of another reason why I would have watched this. But I did watch it, and it scared the living shit out of me. And I had to sleep with the lights on for at least a month, and I had a bunk bed that had a ladder that reminded me of the ladder, so I had to take that down and put it under my bed because I was I'm not doing this. I had this mirror that reminded me of the mirror, and I was just I had to put that away. All of these things, it's oh my god, I'm seeing the signs. It's 7 days, I'm gonna die. Okay, well, 7 days is up, but that doesn't mean anything. It's it could take a minute, but legit scared out of my fucking mind.
Yeah.
So that's me. How about you?
I mean, my history started with the first movie. I remember my brother and I would look at the trailer and be like, that's so scary. Eventually he went and saw it. As a kid, I was so intrigued by scary movies. I never saw them. I was too scared to partake, but I would love to speculate, but I would never watch them because it was just it's too scary. I can't do it. And he famously, in our familial lore, ran out of the theater during this movie.
Oh my goodness, really?
And it was particularly at the scene when they're at the wake for the first girl who dies.
Yeah.
And the mom was the look on her face, and then it cuts to the girl in the closet, and her head swings to the side, and you see the corpse face with her jaw broken and stuff. Apparently my brother screamed and just ran out of the theater, and he never finished it.
Yes,
he's
incredible.
I actually can't do this. And that, because as somebody who also did not see it and was too scared of it, the fact that my brother like literally had to flee at the beginning of the film, had to flee the theater because it was so terrifying. I was like, this is probably the scariest movie that's ever been made. I'm calling it now. It's probably the scariest thing. I'll never watch it. That's just it. And so it's always held this like power over me because of this. And then eventually I watched it and I was like, oh, that was pretty scary. Like that was pretty good. That's pretty fucking scary. And then I loved all of the other sort of like scary movie making fun of it scenes that they did so much of it in. I think it was Scary Movie 3 or 4. But yeah, I really liked The Ring when it came out, or like when I saw it, and it's just been on my list as like something that I've really enjoyed and has a nice little soft place in my heart. So I'm really happy that we're doing it.
You know, something funny. So I never watched scary movies growing up, but I did watch Scary Movie. And
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
Scary Movie too. So like
Yep.
all of like the pop culture ethos things that I know are probably from Scary Movie, which, you know, it's good.
It's how we learn sometimes. Yeah, 100 same. Like half of that stuff too. I was like, I don't really get the reference, but then I'd like see a classic film later and be like, oh, that's what they were making fun of. Got it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's my history with The Ring. Oh, and then I used to see. Remember Suncoast, the store? It was
Yeah.
like in all the malls. I don't know if it's still
Mhm.
around anymore, but they used to have a
I don't
lot
think
of
it is.
right. It probably went
I'm,
out. They used to have a lot of
I'm
international
Googling it.
DVDs, and I would always walk past the international DVD section because I just love looking at like the cool covers, and a lot of the times they were like very graphic or very like jarring or interesting, more interesting than American covers. And the Ringu one I would see every time and be like, I want to see it. I'm gonna see it. I want to see it so bad. One day I'm gonna watch it. Because in my head it was scarier than The Ring. It had to be. And so yeah,
I have some good news for you.
it's
There
still
are
open.
still 3 in existence as of 2022. There's one in Beaumont, Texas, one in Omaha, Nebraska, and one in Jacksonville, North Carolina.
Wow. I'm going to visit one day and be like, here it is. Yeah,
Wow.
Suncoast.
Okay.
Suncoast Video. What an interesting place that sold porn, international film, and cinematic ephemera.
It was
Okay.
always like next to Spencer's.
It was, I mean,
So you could get your porn and your
you hit your big 3.
yeah,
You hit your Suncoast, you hit your Spencer's, and you hit your Hot Topic.
all
It's got,
3.
you
The
gotta
Holy
hit,
Trinity.
yeah.
Yes.
And then get a Blizzard on the way out as you peruse Claire's for 2 seconds,
Oh my
and then you go
God.
home.
I want a Blizzard so fucking
That's
bad
the
right
jam.
now.
I know. God,
Oh
that
my
sounds so good.
Oh my God.
Okay. How do you feel about just jumping into this well of secrets and mystery? Or would you rather get pushed in by a TV?
Oh my God. Journalist Reiko Asakawa is investigating an urban legend several teenagers believe is responsible for the untimely death of her niece Tomoko and several other teenagers. Reiko quickly links 4 teenagers' deaths to a videotape they watched on vacation that allegedly curses those who watch it, giving them only 7 days to live. She manages to find the videotape and decides to watch it for herself and immediately receives a strange phone call informing her of her impending demise in 7 days. Noticeably shaken, Reiko asks her ex-husband Ryuji to help her make sense of the tape, believing he may have some insight due to his psychic abilities. He willingly watches the video and requests a copy for himself. The two then begin analyzing the video's seemingly unrelated images, trying to make a connection between its contents and their shared fate.
Somewhere along the way, their son, Yoichi, watches the video furthering Reiko and Ryuji's drive to solve the curse. Bit by bit, they begin to unravel the mysteries of the video using clues from the regional childhood rhymes, newspapers, location scouting, and eyewitness accounts. Through their research, they are able to put together the story of Shizuko Yamamura, a woman who gained notoriety after performing a public psychic demonstration organized by her secret love, Dr. Haihakiro Ikuma. During the demonstration, a heckling journalist was killed by their illegitimate daughter, Sadako, who possessed even greater psychic ability than her mother and could kill just by thinking about it, allegedly. Ultimately, Shizuko died by suicide and Sadako was killed by Dr. Ikuma when she was thrown down a well. Reiko and Ryuji find the well Sadako died in and have her remains taken for proper burial. Believing the curse was lifted, they go their separate ways again, but Ryuji is killed by Sadako because it turns out she didn't want to be posthumously saved. She wanted everyone to know her story. Slay.
Literally slay.
Literally slay. Okay, so first impressions. I'm so happy we watched this original one, and it makes me want to read. So I also didn't know it was based on a book series.
Yeah.
Written
It's
by Koji Suzuki in '91. Ring was one in a trilogy. There's Ring, there's Spiral, and there's Loop. Apparently, all centering around the same idea. I'm so happy we watched Ringu because the fact that it's so close to the American one in plot kind of blows my mind, because I've always had this assumption that the American one took a lot of liberties like they generally tend to do. But I feel like they followed it pretty.
I don't think they did. I mean,
Really?
like, I'm like major plot points, like, but I think there's a lot of context that they changed.
Yes.
And I think that like makes it a completely different story. I also think that the, Sadako versus Samara that we'll talk about later,
Yeah.
I think that is really different. I think the husband having psychic abilities in this one is really fun and really cool.
Well, I
But like the
yeah.
next one, like I this one, the mom is a mom. She cares. She's good at her job. The dad is, psychic. They don't have like he's not really a bad dude. He just like sucks as a dad and as like a responsible person, like
Yeah.
a father, I guess. Like, and the kid is like fine, but like the kid in this one doesn't have to make up for his mom's shittiness. And the ex-husband isn't like a gross fucking trash boy monster that is like awful at every turn. The mom isn't like she's actually super capable, and like in this one, like having the doctor relationship with the mom being psychic too, I think that really changes everything. And then especially because I think in this one Sadako is a product of unconsensual sex,
So
and
this is
of rape, right?
yeah.
And like when I was reading the Wikipedia, it was like her lover, her this, and I'm like, I don't think that, I mean, the film never really gave me the impression that this was consensual. It never gave me the impression, like, especially because of the treatment of Sadako by her alleged father, Dr. Akuma.
Well, also the
Um,
treatment of her mom too. She's
and the
sort of
treatment of her
seen as
mom.
this like experiment, and he's
And
sort of like
yes.
the one who's like controlling her. She's not really a person; she's an object, and their daughter is the illegitimate byproduct of this experiment.
And
That's
he's
how they
been
pose their relationship. Yeah,
Yes, and the doctor was also like, I mean, he was a doctor of like ESP and like psychiatric stuff, right? So he always, in my mind, and in like the way that the story is told too, like he was extorting the mom just as much as her brother, who was like selling her abilities for money and doing all this stuff, right? So she never really had any agency in any of that, and like literally for them to have a 7-year-old daughter that's at this thing, they like he had to be experimenting on her for what, like 10 years,
yeah,
something like that. So seeing all of that and putting this context together, and like for me that really changes everything.
yeah.
It changes everything because the mom also has these abilities and this is what happened to her. It changes it because so Sadako was born out of sexual violence, right? She was born of this. And everything bad in her life and her mom's life, is because of men, is because of a man, right? And this story is essentially like a woman uncovering the harm that men have caused to another woman, right? And so kind of women saving women a little bit,
Well,
right? And
that's
women telling stories
yes,
and carrying that on. Whereas like Ryuji, he doesn't share the story. He's like, cool, let's just let this be done. We don't have to talk about this ever again. He, brushes it aside and he is dead. Because ultimately, one of the things that I love about the Ring revisiting it is it's not about rest or like having somebody finally hold my bones or anything. It's about sharing the story. It's about not letting what happened happen again. It's about letting other people know that this exists and letting everybody know, like making sure that this act is not like swept under the rug. Like she doesn't give a shit about like redemption or about like being seen or like how can I say this? Like she doesn't want to be go
like infantilized.
like she doesn't want to be her story to be forgotten. Not necessarily her. She
Oh,
doesn't
she
give a
wants to
shit
be.
about her or her legacy or anything. She doesn't want these acts and these things to go unnoticed. That's why, like, the story that she tells, presumably Sadako is the one that put the images together, right? It's about her mom, and it's about, like, yeah, she's there kind of, but not really, but it's about what happened to her mom, right? And telling it in this, like, interesting way. I thought that was really cool, but, like, it's about that and making people see that and confront that rather
Yeah,
than just like, "Oh, look, you found my body. Somebody knows, and now I can rest forever." It's like, "No,
yeah.
fuck that. Fuck these people forever. If you aren't talking about this, like, fuck off." Like, so I like
Yeah,
that.
I without a doubt 100% agree. I think structurally the way that like the whole movie begins is so similar, and then obviously as we get more into like the story about Sadako and her mom, it is so much more impactful because of that. Like, Sadako recognizes the unjust actions of her dad and the situation and their life as a whole. So that whole scene when she's like being forced to show that she's telepathic and that journalist is like, fuck you, you're fake, fucking, we hate you and whatever. She's like, oh, the only person I care about is my mom. Sorry. Like,
Yeah.
you're going to attack her, you're dead. I'm obsessed with that being sort of like the our introduction to her power of fatality and her power to kill is like, you were going after my mom, I'm protecting us, I'm protecting our family. It changes everything. Instead, like, obviously we're going to get more into the Ring
Mhm.
American versus that which is like, I just want to kill, which is like fine, and like I love, and there's more to it than just that, but the way it's
Mm.
posited to the audience, for us at least, it definitely is like, it feels more impactful because it is more meaningful. It is the unjust victims of violence and misogyny and patriarchy as a whole, and
Yes.
them just trying to like survive within it. And like you were saying, the Ring and the story of the videotape is their way of making sure to remind people that the system is fucked, and the system will make sure that these voices, these female voices, are buried and that they will be forgotten. They will be thrown down a well and they will rot forever, unheard and unseen. And I think that that's so fucking cool, and it changes everything that I felt about the Ring, the American version, looking at this and this being more of the like crux of what the story is. Obviously we haven't read the original book that this is based on, but if that be the case, I'm obsessed. I think it's so cool and it changes everything about this movie for me.
Yeah, I personally I prefer this version just
Yeah.
because I think that there's a lot of really interesting things that they're saying that were left out in the more recent one. I think they took a lot of the themes that this one was trying to talk about, and and they twisted them to where now it's not about this. It's about we'll get into it. It's
Yeah.
literally
It's about
like,
weird kids.
oh no, it's about how, you know, women, some women aren't, you know, made to have children. So that's like a gross
it's a
sinister
yeah.
tale,
It's
and how
I'm
adopted
excited.
kids are always bad and all this stuff.
Yeah,
So
I'm really excited to talk about. Okay, let's talk more about this. But yes,
yeah,
that's like also the crux of what I wanted to discuss for the next one, because it is so like, "Ooh, what are we talking about?"
I think structurally, maybe there's a lot of like beats that, you know, like
Well,
go
that's
here, go here, go here. But I think that the context is absolutely different,
yes,
and changed in fundamental ways that make like,
yes,
because of the absence of certain characters or because of the context from this earlier scene or the lack of this detail in this character, I think they're like almost two completely different
yeah.
things.
I
Yeah.
think really it is just the beat for beat, like the opening scene of the girls at home telling the ghost story, and then she dies at home, and then there's the wake, and then we're introduced to Raiko,
I mean,
who
before
is a
the wake, though, we
journalist.
have the wonderful scene where we have to establish that she's a bad mom. But anyways,
Oh, yeah. But but
um,
but even similarly, it's like, oh, she's the bad mom, and like all of these moments, I was like, oh, I'm just so surprised, because I feel like oftentimes the American remake takes so many, like, obviously thematically they took a lot of liberties just in what the story is telling, but more so they take liberties in like scenes, like brand new scenes that recontextualize the timeline or whatever. And I feel like this one, it felt pretty like beat for beat. We're going through the story with the exception of a few moments and obviously the themes as a whole. And I was just surprised by how similar it felt. Because
Yeah.
also The Ring is a movie I'm so familiar with. So when I started watching Ringu first to then watch The Ring, I was like, oh, this is like the same movie. That's so cool. I don't know. It's a remake, and I know
Yeah,
that, but
I
I was
mean
just, I
that
was just impressed.
so
I wanna point out one fun moment in the, I think it's the videotape, or is it the dream? I forget. It's when the dad, or the doctor rather, knocks his daughter into the well. The sound effect is so funny. It is like stock image 1001 moviesounds.com sound footage. It's like a
I mean, that
like
was a
it hits over. It's
talkie.
like
That wasn't even a talkie back then. So
but
like
that's, oh
somebody
my
had to
god.
go in and like add that.
It was so funny. I couldn't handle
Yeah.
how like silly it felt because it's like a very serious scene where like he's killing his kid. Like this is crazy.
Oh, you know what? That's
Um
not a video. That's a memory, right?
that was a memory.
Because
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
I
Okay.
couldn't remember
Sorry.
if it was
Boom, boom,
like
boom. It
a
was a
memory or a
memory.
dream. It was a memory. Yeah. It was just I could not handle how silly it was. It was like thump, thump. Oh my gosh.
I mean, if I was a Foley artist, there would be one sound just for me in every movie.
Yes.
And that
I
would be it for
also,
this one.
one thing that I want to bring up as a trope in a lot of older movies, we don't really do it much anymore. Because I think as a society we recognize that this is like gross. But when femme presenting people or women are shown as being affected by something deeply and they're contemplating or physically affected by like the intensity of something, the trauma of a situation, men instinctively want to hit them. Just
Yep.
it happens in like everything where it's like, hey, there's a dead body, whatever. It's like, I'm processing this. It's like, snap out of it, hit. And you're like, what? It happens so much. And in this one, I remember just like, because I was like super engaged. Like, yes, they're at the well, they're under the cabin. Here we fucking go. And then he's just like, fucking. And I'm like, okay.
I mean, she's like
Um,
giving up hope, and in this moment, like rather than like comforting her, like the what he's going to do is like another act of violence where like everything in this movie is like about and because of men's unsolicited violence against women. Even the reporter that died, he was like literally in there like fuck you, you're a fake, blah blah blah, right? And like and Sadako just like fuck you, don't talk to my mom like this, right? Like,
yeah.
and because she was like standing up for herself and her mom and like just, I don't know, women as a whole in this moment, like, how dare her do this, right? Like, I mean, society, there's no place for that in society, right? And I'm just
Yeah.
like, fuck.
Yeah, I mean, granted, I like that. I at least for me, the character, and again, it's more thematic in this one. The character who does the violence against her, who slaps her, he ends up dying. He's like the boyfriend. I'm
Yes.
happy that that in the story is a continuation of like the vengeance against the reiterative hushing and the violence of keeping women down and quiet and silenced and small. And even as somebody who is sort of one of the leads of the movie, who's trying to uncover these unjust actions, he's still a participant and he's still a part of that system. And I know that it's not like clear and concisely this, but the fact that he is a participant, he is still going to be revenged upon. He's still a
Yeah.
part of it. He's still an actionable participant in it. And so he's not immune to it despite the adventure that they've just gone on. It's still going to come for him too because he is just as complicit in the violence against women in this story. And you're like, that's fucking cool.
And you're so right. And it's really cool because I really like the characterization of Reiko. I think she's really smart. She's really capable. You know, is she always there for her kid? No. But
No.
I mean, she does try. Like, she at least tries to have
Yeah.
conversations and stuff, right? So I really like her. We know right off the bat that she's really intelligent. She's like in that newsroom, like bossing these people around. She's like, no, 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 this is what's happening. This is what I'm doing. And nobody's questioning her ability. They're like, yes. And then when she goes to Ryuji's house to like ask him for help, right? She's not like, oh my goodness, can you help me? She's like, hey, I need help. His like, because again, he's a participant in this and he is bad, right? His student, who is also his girlfriend, like walks in and she could give a shit less. She does not care. She does not care about any of this, right? She's here to figure this out, to figure out what killed her niece, to, maybe save herself because she doesn't want her child to be motherless. So she's like trying to figure this out. But like, even in all of that, right? Like, we still see her run up against walls that she wouldn't be able to break down without Ryuji being on board, right?
Yeah.
And to his credit, he's like, oh shit, this is going on. Okay, cool. I'm on board. Let's figure this out, right? So even though he can, still have these moments of like allyship and like, I want to make sure that you're okay and that, whatever, like, he's still bad, right? Like, so
He's still bad.
there's the moment where they go to the island, right, to talk to Sadako's family there. And the uncle won't talk to Reiko. He's like, fuck you. I have nothing to say to you, you fucking woman, blah, 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 blah. But then Ryuji starts asking, then there's a different side of him, right? And while he's still standoffish, he's giving information, right? He's telling her that people hated Sadako's mom. Like, they said that she was unlucky. Like, and it's so interesting because we're hearing men's recounting of these women. We never actually hear a woman like talk about what these women were like or anything, or their memories. So like in her uncle's memory, or her brother's memory, I'm sorry, she, was talking in like demon speech and all of this. And it's like literally he just did not understand her. And rather than saying I didn't understand her, he's like, oh, she's talking to the devil. And then the whole town is like, oh, well, she's unlucky. Well, she's bad. She's everything. When they literally just don't understand the gifts that she has. And she probably could have saved him from that volcano or whatever. I don't know. But like,
yeah.
But again, like she wouldn't have access to that information without her husband and even his own ESP, right? It's okay for him to have that because he's a man, and it's okay for him to know things and to have this agency and to take these memories from people where it's like, sure, her brother was there like crying or not crying, but just like feeling shitty. But like if Rico had that, it would have played out so much differently, right? So even in the story itself, like patriarchy is necessary to uncover the truth. And Sadako is still just like, fuck all of this. I hate this.
Literally. And I love her in this. I think she's so cool.
She is so cool.
She's like, the system, fuck you guys. It's because it feels like such a more, not to say that like revenge is earned, but it feels like much more of like a, yeah, you should fucking kill them. Like, you should be mad at this. You should be disgusted by all of this stuff. And hey, you've got this sick ass power. Kill some people. Like, go get them. Like, you should destroy them. Get out of the situation. And it's really intense.
Yeah.
It's a good movie.
And it's so interesting because, Sadako was not allowed to exist with these powers, but yet Ryuji knows his son has these powers and he's just like, yeah, whatever. It's fine. Like, because he's a man in this world that is built for men, he's allowed to exist and exude these things. So
exactly. It is it is character assassination with like Sadako and her mom. What is her mom's name? Shinzuko? So with the two, I mean, like the way that he's like, oh, I'm allowed, like you were saying, I'm allowed to have these powers, but they're not. They're talking with the devil. They're bad. Like everything that they're doing that I'm also doing, kind of. But they're doing it the bad way, and I'm doing it the good way because I'm a doctor and I'm like smart and capable and can do all these things. And they are witches, so we should kill them. And everyone's like, that's a really good point. The thing you said about witches and women, that's great. We should listen to you. It's quintessential misogyny and patriarchy. And I love that is the key element of the film in just every aspect. That's what we're discussing. That's what we're talking about. And at the end of the day, it is a reminder that like that shit's bad. And that's why the story exists, is to remind us that like, hey, A, don't do this, and B, fuck this system.
Fuck the
Cool.
system.
Let's scoot. And like that's the movie. And that's why she exists. That's why they exist. And I'm so impressed by this movie.
Yeah, this movie is really great.
Yeah.
I like, even as just like a detective story, right, where we're watching Reiko go through these motions and figure out based on a rumor, right? Oh, this is this, and then like, putting all these pieces together, believing other women, right? The teenagers, the teenage girls are the ones that tell her like, "Hey, we think that this happened." And she's like, at first like, "Oh, okay, I don't know, but like, sure, maybe." But she follows up and she does check it out, and it turns out that they were right. I also thought that it was interesting that there's like, in that opening scene, and they do this in both films, where the two teenage girls are like kind of talking. There's that moment where it's like their virginity is called into question, right? Where they're like, "Oh my God, did you? Oh my God, wait, did you?" But like, I think it's more interesting in this movie because of what that could mean and what that can mean to Sadako being like a child born out of the situation that she was like. So is this her punishing women? Like, is it, like there's a lot of ways that that could go, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's tricky because again, it's like, what did they do? Although I think it's more because she is still like, she's the monster of our story.
Yes.
And so I do think that there still is sort of a.
And that's why I think, like,
Yeah.
there probably was that, like, in Sadako's mind, who is still a 7-year-old, right? And doesn't understand nuance and everything and knows the difficult life that she had. And maybe, like, if they fucked and then there's a kid that's born out of this, they're going to suffer the same fate as me. How dare you push this upon another kid or something? Like, that is something that I think we could look at further if we wanted to. But,
Yeah.
because again, like, she is the monster of the story. Her rage and her experience, her lived experience, is something that she's trying to express to the world and make sure everybody has this and that nobody has to go through it again. At least in my mind, I think her rage and her monstrous self is like absolutely justified, and I'm 100% here for it,
Yeah.
But yeah, I did think that was interesting. And in the next one, I mean, it's a whole nother conversation because it's all about infertility. Um, but it's awful. So putting myself in the 7-year-old mentality, it's like, yeah, of course, I'm gonna want to fuck everybody up. And if they're not they're not my ally in spreading my story, then they're against me. Fuck you.
Yeah. Like,
Like,
oh, you want to joke about suicide? Dead. You don't deserve
done.
it. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I like that as an idea because she's like, you know what? Fuck you guys.
Yeah.
Don't
I
talk about
mean,
my mom like that.
and in the end, they were just gossiping about her and her mom's story, right? They weren't like actually trying to share it or talk about it or uncover it. Like, they were just gossiping, not showing, like, and again, gossip is what, like, spurned like this entire thing. So
Yeah,
I'm
slay,
way
get
into
'em.
it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good. It is such an interesting and cool movie. Like, especially for this to be like the first cinematic pass at the story. What a fresh take and what an interesting story. Like,
Also,
it's
okay.
just so good. It's so good.
Yeah, and also like supposedly like some of these events were based on historical events or things from
Hmm.
like dating all the way back to like the age of the samurai and stuff like that, which again is fucking cool. So like
Oh,
we
like just in terms of the lore of like a sort of like a visual disease of like death.
maybe, I don't know. I
Like,
didn't read as far into it, but I did read that
gotcha.
like the book at least had some, like, there's like the based on a true story or whatever, that some of it was based in like actual
Like generalized folklore, possibly.
probably, yeah.
That's so
But
cool.
I still love it. I think it's so cool. Let's see.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot else to say
I do think that the
about this
son was
one.
cool. I like the son a lot. I liked that he was having a hard time like understanding children's death and what that means for him and in his world.
Yeah.
And I liked that the mom was like actually there and trying to like, talk to him about it and like explain it, like be there for him in this moment. I did like that. And I like that she wasn't a perfect mom. Like, she was obviously gone a lot on her own and everything, leaving him to kind of fend for himself, but she did try to be there in the moments that, like, really matter, and she was also trying to make sure that, "Hello, I'm here for you, actually, I'm not gonna die."
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I thought, like, it was really creepy when, like, I love the idea of him being psychic, and I wish we got to explore that just a little bit more, because like, I love the idea of, like, his dead cousin telling him to watch the video. Like, I was like, "That's
Yes.
fucking wild." Oh
I
my
do like
god.
that a lot.
I don't like the son in the next one. I think that, like, and when I say I want the kid to be more psychic, I don't mean in that way. Let me
Yeah.
clarify this right here and now before all of you.
The M. Night Shyamalan eyes and
Oh my
hello,
god.
Rachel. Rachel. Oh,
Rachel.
Rachel.
Just say fucking mom. God. Like, Jesus. Yeah, I think this is really, really cool. This is way I expected it to be good because it's the original, right? And
Yeah. I mean, similarly, it's a movie that I've been waiting to watch for literal over a decade and some change. I've been excited to watch this movie, and so I'm really happy we finally did, and it was really a treat and a joy to get to see it.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
different. It was not what I expected in like for some weird reason, but I loved that about it. And I think it's
Same.
just because yeah, I think it was a better detective story.
It's a great
But
story. It's a good movie. It's
yeah,
a great movie. And on that note, let's go to an arguably just as great movie, The Ring.
we are going to argue.
We're gonna talk about it. No, I know. Let's talk about it. Let's do it. Journalist Rachel Keller is investigating an urban legend several teenagers believe is responsible for the untimely death of her niece, Katie, and several other teenagers. Rachel quickly links 4 teenagers' deaths to a videotape they watched on vacation that allegedly curses those who watch it, giving them only 7 days to live. She manages to find the videotape and decides to watch it herself, and immediately receives a strange phone call informing her of her impending demise in 7 days. Noticeably shaken, Rachel makes a copy and asks her ex-husband, Noah, to help her make sense of the tape, believing he might have some insight due to his audio and visual club skills. He watches the video and dismisses it as a student film before blowing her and his assistant off. Rachel begins analyzing the video's seemingly unrelated images on her own, trying to make a connection between its contents and the phone call.
Somewhere along the way, Rachel and Noah's son Aiden watches the video, furthering Rachel's drive to solve the curse. Bit by bit, she begins to unravel the mysteries of the video using clues from stills of the video, newspapers, location scouting, eyewitness accounts, and at some point, Noah comes back to help solve the mystery. Through their research, they are able to put together the story of an acclaimed horse breeder named Anna Morgan, who adopted a daughter, Samara, after struggling with infertility. Samara possessed strong psychic abilities, which frightened her mother and prompted her to lock Samara in a room in the barn by herself. Ultimately, Samara had the horses kill themselves, so Anna killed Samara and then herself. Eventually, Rachel and Noah find the well Samara died in, and believing the curse was lifted, they go their separate ways again. But Noah is killed by Samara because it turns out she didn't want to be posthumously saved. She wanted everyone to know her story. Slay again. Again, we're gonna slay people and
Slay.
we're gonna slay
Slay it.
teenagers. Jesus. Okay.
So the classic, the lovely, the wonderful film that is The Ring. In general, base level, I do love this movie still. I think it is really messy in a lot of elements that I really want to talk about with you. But overall, I still really enjoyed myself watching this. Apart from watching a horse get like eaten by a boat. That part I still fucking hate. Every time it happens, I'm just like, no, get away from the trailer. Let the horse stay. And then obviously it's the movie, so it
Yeah,
doesn't
I'm
happen.
like, why do you need to go near the fucking horse?
And she
Okay.
kept going too. She was just
kept
like,
going. Like,
no, horse, let me talk to you. It's like go to
this
your
is not
car.
consent. This is not consensual.
Literally, go to your car. This isn't your horse.
Get away.
The horse doesn't want to be around you. Fuck off. Like, ugh,
Yeah.
whatever.
Also, one of the things that just like took me way the fuck out of the story. One of the many things. When mom fell down the well that Samara was trapped in or whatever. So she is like in 2 feet of water, and I don't know how she didn't die falling from
When
like
she
40
hit the
feet
ground.
when she hit the ground.
Yes.
Because like there's moments where she's like pretending to and you can very clearly tell that she is like in like 3 feet deep water, and she's like trying to pretend like she's drowning, like she's swimming. And I'm like, bitch, there is like, this is not a good job. But also like, how do you not feel the bones? They're literally right there, just like, hug her and go away. Like,
they're right there. You feel them. Well, I mean,
I
not only
don't
that,
understand. I don't understand how she like did not die.
I mean, literally, like the way she gets knocked into the well, where we see like the nails and the screws coming up from the cabin, and like the TV like slides down and fucking into her. Like, obviously, it was like a prop, but the way that prop of her body like swings into the hole, and then we watch it bounce on the stone walls on the way down, I'm like, oh, she died. She's dead. Like,
dead. D-E-D dead.
Concussed, knocked out, drowning at the bottom. Like, she's dead. There's no question. Yeah. She's gone. And then she comes up like full makeup, doing well. Like, I'm in a well now. You're like,
she's literally like trying to like splash, like she's like treading water, but like her arms are like, she's literally waist deep in this water, and her arms are outside of the water. And I'm like, I don't understand what's happening.
So good. Super hot, sexy slay.
Thank you for that.
There are so many cool elements in this movie. I want to highlight 2 off the bat, just as like a goodness, moments that were like one moment that was sort of in the other one and one that wasn't. The cut to, like I said earlier, the mother of the first victim saying, I saw her face, and then it cuts to the flashback of her seeing her daughter dead in the closet. It is so good. It is so good, and it is so scary, and the way her face looks, the sound behind it, how quickly they cut to it, everything about that moment, I'm like, genius, lovely, obsessed with it. Secondly, when Miss Naomi Watts is choking on a little bit of yarn in the kitchen, and she's like pulling out this string from her throat, and you find out it's what it was so gross and so cool. And you find out it's one of those like electric monitor like chest cups that you like put for ECG or whatever. Fucking amazing. Like the whole acting in it too. The
fly coming out of like the like those things I loved. Those are things that I absolutely adored about this movie. Like
so cool. I'm obsessed with, because also to like the blurring of the face when the boyfriend is at the fucking convenience store and she's like, you're gonna die. He's like, what? It's like, you shouldn't smoke cigarettes. You're like, that's fun. I love that.
Yes.
And then he looks at himself in the fucking monitor and his face is all fucked up and he's like, wait, what's happening? And it's like clicking for him that this is real. And you're like, I love it. I love it. I love those elements. We were talking about something before that we were going to carry over here. Thematically, it was something that we were both feeling was messy. I forget what it was.
Oh, we were going to talk about infertility. So,
yes.
The recontextualization, or like the entire news story, because I don't feel like this story has absolutely anything to do with the last one. And I think it suffers for it, because I think the idea of this being something that happened like, 100 years ago or whatever, I think the psychic thing, like all of that is really fun and I think really adds a lot. Instead, it's just like a horse breeder and I'm like, okay, that's boring. But it's a horse breeder who is Anna. She can't have children. She miscarried several times, and then there's like this I guess it is said like between like the doctor and like her husband and all of this, where they're literally saying like some women just weren't made to be mothers. So insinuating that infertile women don't deserve to have children. And then that's furthered by when she finally does have a child and adopts Samara, right? She just like is like, I just need a baby, give me a baby. And she gets Samara. Samara has these psychic abilities that scare her. She's scared of the kid. She locks her away in the tower of the barn, essentially, and then she kills her. She kills her daughter, insinuating
she's like, wait, I don't like this one. I actually don't want this one.
I actually don't want this one. I'm sorry. No.
Can I return her?
Oh, I can't? Okay, don't worry about it. And then she like literally kills her daughter, the daughter that because like everybody's talking about how badly she wanted to be a mom. So for me, like thematically, this is saying that infertile women should not have children because they don't have those maternal instincts. They can't get over that. Also, adopting children is always like they're always going to be bad. There's always something fucked up or wrong with them. So, you shouldn't adopt. You should just, if you can't have kids, you can't have kids, and that's it. So I think everything
Well,
about that is gross and messy and disgusting, and I
here's
hate it.
here's also another thematic element to tie in the loop, the horse element, right? The horses play a big role in this, not only through death, but as thematic figures of free roaming and beautiful, and then suddenly stripped of their autonomy in their life.
Yeah.
However, also the idea that they are horse breeding, therefore inseminating horses to procreate, and therefore thematically linking the women in this movie to horses to be like, well, she's not really a woman because she can't have children. Like, she can't be a mother, and therefore she's not like a fit woman because she is lacking the capability to reproduce. And for us, the men in the story, the only reason we really care about her is because of her infertility. That's the big
Yeah.
moniker on her forehead of like, I can't have kids. Cool. So if we're looking at it also from the perspective of like horse breeding, she would be worthless in that capacity, and she is told to us in the audience as such. She is seen as worthless, as incompatible for motherhood and incompatible for life, in the same way that female horses who are not able to breed in a breeding capacity on this farm would be deemed as worthless.
Mm-hmm.
And so that tie together, I think, is an extra layer of like, oh yeah, that's right. Like, women are objects. Women don't matter. In this story specifically, the only reason she is there, we are told, is because she wants to be a mom, and suddenly she can't do it, so she's no longer even a woman at that point.
And her husband
She's
didn't even really
worthless.
care,
He
right?
didn't
And
care.
like to this point, he didn't care because she wasn't an actual breeder, right? She wasn't able to like produce children for him. And he's like, I just care about horses. Like several times too, like people like, he only cares about the horses. He only cares about the horses, right? He only cares about horse breeding.
And
But then when
he
she's
sees her as a
gone,
fucking horse.
yeah.
It's
And
crazy,
also
and it's super gross.
And then when he dies, like he dies with
oh my
I was
God.
like, oh my God. Like
It's
he has
so-
the bridle in his mouth,
yes.
like, and he
Okay.
electrocutes himself with that. And I was like, all of this, yes.
Yes. And that also, part of me wishes, like, because again, with these themes, the way that it doesn't fully connect them leaves us in the dark a little bit with her character as this like mother to be, or like a bad mother, because instead of saying that like she is the victim of the circumstance of an abusive, emotionally abusive relationship where she's not seen as a person, we're told by the movie that, oh, that has nothing to do with it. You're just a bad mom. And
Yeah.
it's like, well, no. Like, sure, yes, that's part of it, but it's not that. It stems from this other part of the relationship, which is her not being seen as a person. She's seen as an object to be bred, an object to be replicated. Like, she's not a person in the eyes of her husband. And I think that lack of humanity and that lack of warmth and stability is ultimately what, like, leads her to, like, kill her daughter. Like, oh, this isn't the daughter that I want. She's unfit to be my child because she scares me. Instead of seeing the human element of, let's find the common ground, let's communicate, let's talk, let's work through it. She, my daughter now, is incapable of being a child to me. She is useless. She is an object, and I'm going to throw her away in the same way that she's been thrown away by her husband and by society. And you're like, oh,
I
fuck.
love that. So yes, so with that context, and if we're linking those two, then I love this, and then my problems are solved. But my problem
But it doesn't
is,
do it fully well. It doesn't do it well, and that's
it never
why.
links them like that, right? And I think if it did link them, I think this movie would really be elevated. I think
I know.
like,
Ugh.
and then it ties more back to like the first one and like the objectification of women and things like that. And again, I love that. I think that is all so great. But I feel like instead of seeing her as a victim, right, like we do in the first one, clearly so, right, like both her and Sadako, like in this one, they are both monsters. And they reiterate that kind of every chance that
Every
we
turn.
can. It's like a big like twist when we see that the mom is the one that pushed her down the well, right? And then it's also a big twist at the end, which I do love this, like, but in the context of like what we're talking about right now, I don't think it's great because it just further gets away from like what we want these connections to be. But the son, when he finds out that his mom let Samara out, he like looks at her and he's like, what did you do? You weren't supposed to let her out. Oh my God. And we get the sense of like, holy shit, something bad is going to happen, which now is like really making her even more of a monster. It's making it's
It's
it's bad. It was
taking
the wrong
it's
choice, man.
I love it. I
It
love it
just
for how
for like that
scary it
like
is. I like for how
yeah.
scary it is, but you're 100% right because it takes the human element out of the equation, right? Like instead of just wanting to
You're
be
not supposed to help
heard,
these people.
it's like, oh no, she is like she has no human empathy. She has nothing. She's just here to kill. And that's also bled into like when we're going back to the videotapes of like her being interviewed in the mental institution essentially. Like when they're doing the
Mhm.
tests on her in the lab and they're asking like, well, what made you want it? She's like, but I did. I did want to do it. I wanted to kill. Like,
Yeah.
that's what I'm doing. And I'm just like the sick little kid who wants to murder. And you're like, okay, like, yeah, for sure. And that is also scary, but it also, I think, is like the easiest route for this character because literally they're like the whole familial element, the generational trauma of it all with this family, it's so there. And I feel like these moments of just like monstrous explanation stuff
Mhm.
really pulls focus from like the great like the subtext of what she is, who she is in context to the story. And I hated that. I didn't like it. And also, it's not scary enough to be worth it for me. Like, if you're gonna do it and it adds the element of like that's fucking terrifying, for a horror film, I'd say, okay. Like you're like personally, you can like weigh those scales a little bit, and if it's scary enough for the sake of like, yes, it's a scary movie, we're trying to creep people out, cool. It wasn't scary enough. It comes off as cheesy and cliche, and for that reason, it pulls away from the subtext of the story. But then also, it's like an empty, shitty, stale bread. Like
Yeah.
I'll eat it, but it does nothing for me in the long run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's other things too that like I feel like just really took away from the story, especially after watching the first one, right? The mom, right? Rachel is not she's a actual bad mom. She's an actual really fucking bad mom, first of all, right? It's like, "Oh my God, my son is so grown up," where he's literally reading his babysitter bedtime stories and setting out his mother's clothes. He knows that this guy is his daddy, and he's like, "Yeah, whatever, fuck off." He calls his mom Rachel. There's no connection, right? So, like, we're talking about bad moms and some women shouldn't have children or whatever. And this is another child that's had out of wedlock or whatever, right? So we're going back to that. But the very first thing that we know and learn about Rachel is that she's a bad mom. And almost like that's like the most important thing about this character, where she's going to her son's school and she's late. She's on the phone. She gets off the phone. She says shit or something as soon as she walks in the classroom. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry. Her son is just like, whatever, you're a fucking idiot, and runs out. And the teacher sits her down and she's like, hey, have you talked to your son? I heard that there was a death and all this. Have you talked to him? And she's like, no, my son knows that I'm here. He knows. He's doing fine. He knows. And then she's like, okay, but look at these pictures that your son's been drawing, and like they're disturbing, right? It's like his cousin, like, dead under the ground. She's like, well, she's like trying to make these fucking excuses. And she's like, okay, but he was drawing these before she died. Like,
Yeah.
you need to fucking talk to your kid. And she's like, okay, whatever. And then she has this perfect moment to talk to her son at the funeral. And instead, she just leaves him because she doesn't know what to say. And she goes to talk to the mom, who then begs her to look into the story, right? The mother of the
The first
dead,
victim. Yeah.
yeah, she is begging Rachel to look into it because she can, right? And I'm like, this takes so much away, right? Because she's not doing this out of the goodness of her heart or out of the curiosity or wanting to know like what happened. She's only doing it because somebody guilted her into doing her fucking job, right? Or into like,
Yeah.
using the skills and the tools that she has to like try to make sure that this doesn't happen or try to figure out what happened to her fucking niece, right? So that also sucked. And then like there's other times where like they try to be like, oh, she's girl bossing, right? Where she's like, oh, you can't fire me actually you can't fire me. But then the very next scene, she takes the video to her ex-boyfriend or whatever, and he's like, oh, and you have to do this. Like she went to him because he's the expert, but she's like, no, let me touch it, let me touch it. And then she fucks the whole thing up. And I'm like, okay, like, is she capable? Is she not capable? What the fuck are
Yeah.
you trying to say with this character? Like, she is so all over the place. She is so fucking bad. And then to top everything off, she ends it by her revelation about Samara is that she's like, Samara just wanted to be heard. Kids like yell and cry and draw pictures to get your attention. Like she just needed somebody to hear her, right? And the whole time I'm like, your son was like yelling and crying
Well,
and like drawing these pictures. Why the fuck aren't you like, why? And
so
she's such a
here's
Karen. She's so
I
bad.
I will say that's sort of why I like the character, because she is very much that person who's like, I just learned this thing. Let me talk to you as if I've known it for 20 years and here's why you should be doing it. And you're like, dude,
But she's the hero
you're
again.
I,
Make
yeah.
the audience know that she's bad and that we don't like her, but instead she's the hero you're supposed to be rooting for, right? And like,
Well, cuz
ugh.
I mean yes, but also she is the hero of the story technically, but in the end, she still gets everything taken from her. Right? Like I like that throughout the story, throughout her relationship, she's learning to be a better mom, not a great mom, but a better mom. That's like what we're seeing. And she's also learning how to like with her ex-boyfriend, we see them through this adventure rekindle some level of romance. Like they hold hands in the car.
Oh
They're
fuck
like,
that.
which
I was so
I know,
not into that.
but at least for her character, it's like, oh, she's finally like, she is getting this thing that she now wants, and it's like, for us, what we're being told is that she's kind of coming into her own adulthood, because everything else generally has been this sort of like complacent adolescent immaturity that she kind of just throws at the wall and like, oh, I have a kid kind of, and fuck you, I'm gonna do whatever I want, like you can't tell me what to do, you're not my mom, like that kind of thing. That's like her whole deal. We watch that sort of like coalesce into more of a, maybe I should like be a little bit more astute or resolute or whatever, and not so many words. But then ultimately, when she finally gets that thing and she's like, I saved my son, I am happy with this guy, his dad, and like maybe we can be a family again, and that's like really cool. Nope, dad's dead, fuck you. And the son's like, what are you doing, you idiot, you fucking fool, you don't get it, you never got it and you never will, you do not understand what you're talking about. She's like, wait, what? No, I solved it, I did everything for me and for you. And he's like, you're wrong, and you're costing more people their lives because of that ignorance. And you're like, you know what I mean, like
I
the
don't
happy
think that
family crumbling, and you're like,
I don't think that she had any growth. I think she thought that she grew, but I don't think that she did. And
but that's
so
what
the
I
son
mean.
calling her out on that is great. But again,
Yeah.
like I don't think that this movie was written really smartly, because I feel like if it tied together some of these things, or if it made some of these things more apparent,
Yeah.
then like 100% I'm on board. But like that's all subtext on subtext on subtext, and like I feel like it wasn't like really there enough for me to be like, fuck yes, I'm 100% on board with this. Also, the shit with Noah, like, I don't want him to have anything nice in life. I think he's bad. He's bad to women. He's awful and dismissive. The first thing he does is comment on her not being dressed well. Like, he's taking stalker photos of her son that we just like glance over and everything, right? And he's just like ultimately a really bad dude. So I want nothing good for him. And
Exactly.
like, the whole movie, I feel like she's pretty much like, oh yeah, fuck you, whatever, I don't care. And then he's like, he smiles once, or he does like something
It's
once, and it's like, oh my god, we're connected now. Oh, everything is so great and everything is so much better. And I'm like, that doesn't like and of course, like if she's like, this archetype that we're making her out to be, yes, but I still wanted things to be more apparent. Like
yes.
I
I
wanted it to be more overt and less subtext.
I agree. I feel like it would have made more sense if it was a little bit more apparent, but I'm still of the mind that like it is such a fallacy, this idea that like, again, that guy's a scumbag. He's literally taking photos of this random kid, his son, who he knows is his son, and the whole time is like, oh, I don't really want to be a part of your life. And he's like, okay, cool. And he's just like a bad dude. He's a misogynist. He's just like all of these things. And suddenly, again, like you said, it's like, oh, what, he smiled and now he gets to be a dad? Like, what are you talking about? Like, you're not a good guy and you're not good for her. But in her mind, what she thinks is supposed to be the ideal familial structure and the idea of like growing up and taking responsibility as a mother, all of those conceptions are wrong. And I that's to
I
me,
think that's
that's
cool. Yeah.
yeah. Because then like as the hero, we're seeing all of these conceptions happen and it's a little disjointed, like, well, no, but like what? And then it like because also the music cues in that moment when she's like in bed with her son and like she's like, I did it. I saved everything. I'm so fucking good. Like your life, like you don't even get it. Like I saved your life and like I'm back together with your dad and like I love you and I love being a mom. And it's like that's like the subtext of the scene. And she's like, yeah, this is what I did. And he's like, what the fuck? Are you stupid? Are you dumb? And then you're just like, what? And then it's like, yeah. And then you watch too, because also you watch her in the like the hallway watching the other girl go up to like find the dead body, and she does nothing. She says nothing. She doesn't warn her. She lets her walk into the room. And I know that she is traumatized and she's having a moment here. However, this is like to me proof that she has not grown at all.
Yeah.
Right? Like
totally.
in the moment of the death, there is still this weird internalized misogynistic envy that she's feeling for this woman and not wanting to be seen and feeling like she's like somebody to beat, like she's an adversary. It's like she's not grown at all. She has not changed. She is still the shitty person we met, and she ends the shitty person we met, but she has now lost everything. And you're like, yes. Cyclically, the ring, she's back to square one, and the tape continues. I mean, ultimately, the only thing she does actually do well is actively save her son's life by having him make the copy of the tape. And even in that scene, he's like, what is going to happen? And she's like, well, let's not worry about that. He's like, you know what you're doing. Like,
you're going to kill somebody, Mom.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is going to continue to kill people. And you're letting that happen by making me do this. And she's like, I don't want to think about that as long as you're safe. And he's like, you're bad. Like, this is
you're bad, Rachel.
Yes, you're doing a bad thing, and that's the end of the movie.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, no,
like
totally.
She doesn't change, and he's like, you're a bad mom and a bad person, and you've always been that person, no matter how much you convince yourself that you're not, and how much adventure you go on to like solve the thing that had nothing to do with you. You're still bad because you don't get it. You still don't get it, and that's where we're at. And you're like,
I guess if she wasn't going to die, that's a really good ending. And I really do like hearing you talk about this and like be like, no, but this, Jess. And I'm like, yes, you're right. I'm going too far into the thing. But like, I just really fucking hate these characters so much.
She's so hard to like.
So much.
So hard to like.
Not that I need to like characters to enjoy a film, but I just feel like, I don't know, maybe after watching the first one, like they could have done so much better with these same characters, with, like just recontext, like just put a couple more lines or do a little something. Like there's something that in this film is inherently missing that like I feel like having that would just but I love hearing you talk about this because that's great.
I really think it's the tie-in between like horse breeding and motherhood. If we were to just connect that dot a little bit closer, I feel like it would tie everything together because it would make sense for the whole story about Samara and her mom and the envy and the guilt and the trauma and the objectification and like the lack of autonomy. Like it would mesh it all together because again, under patriarchy, women are not people, they are objects. And this story would reiterate the fact that they are only here to reproduce, says the man in power. And you're like, fuck. So sick. And not only that, but because Samara has powers capable of killing people and convincing people to die by suicide, this man, this patriarchal figure, is afraid of her. And instead of doing something about it, he essentially makes his wife, the person who he's like, you wanted to be the mom, he makes her do it. Even though he's also the one affected by it.
And he watches her do it.
He watches her do it. And it's this insidious cyclical, like I'm not handling this. Like, you're a girl, go do it. Like, she's scaring me, she's powerful, you need to get rid of her. Because she could change the power structure. And you're like, yes. But again, if they had tied it closer to the horse stuff and like, because all of the imagery too with like the horses, and I know said I hate the scene of like the horse jumping off the ferry and getting hit by the boat, but like the moment when she's like going to touch the horse and it's like that would have been so impactful if we had already sort of like linked harder the idea of being a mom and like being seen as an object, where like she is a mother, right? But she still doesn't get who she is in the society that does not see her as such, and she doesn't see herself as such because she's perpetuating the idea that she doesn't need to do these things. And the horse, who recognizes where they are in the structure, that they are an object to be breeded and an object to be replicated, it's like, stay the fuck away from me.
Yeah.
You're so scary. You don't get it. You're going to cause more death because you don't understand what part you're playing in this misogynistic patriarchy. And you're the problem. Let me get the fuck away from you. Foo, off the ferry. You know what I mean? Like,
see, Eric, just punch this up. Do it.
It would have made because that scene is like a little scary and a little weird, but it would have made so much more sense and it would have been like, this is crazy cool.
It would also make more sense if it's like, this is why she's reaching out to it and can't stop, right? Like, you're so right. All of these things, that would have fixed it. That and not making Samara and her mom actual monsters.
Yes.
I think like those two things, I think then I would have been I would have been way more on board.
I think also in my head, because I like this movie a lot and I've watched it a lot of times. And so in my head, I've spent time like trying to piece these moments together. And so that when I watch it, I already have this like preconceived context that I've created for this as like a possibility. So then when I rewatch it, I'm like, oh yeah, of course. And that makes perfect sense, even though that's not there, which makes me like it more because it's like this new idea that I've implanted as a subtext that may not even be in the movie. But
this is why I love hearing you talk about it, because like first pass in like, I don't know, 15 years, 20 years is like, well, this is, oh my God, this is actually not scary. What was I thinking? And everybody sucks in this movie.
And it's one of those things because oftentimes with characters, if everyone in a movie sucks, I'm like, what's the point? If the point is that they're bad. That is how I was feeling, yes. Yeah, if the point is that they're bad, I'm like, okay, well then why am I watching this? Because I've said in other episodes where like, nothing's changed. You're right back to the beginning. What was the fucking point? But I think with this movie, it's so different because she tries so hard to change it. The whole time she's like, I can be good. I can be good. I can be seen as good by my son, by society, by this guy, by the patriarchy at large. I can be seen as like a viable candidate for the system. And suddenly it's like, no, you idiot. Like, you're still, nothing is changing about you. The only thing that's changing is the way you want people to perceive you. And that's the problem. And you're still bad. So even though we've started bad and ended bad, it's still the journey that she tries to go on. But it's like as if she started her adventure, and instead of going down like the hero's journey, she turned left, went to the bathroom, came back out and was like, I've changed because I peed. You know what I mean? She misses the point completely.
So much release.
And comes back. She's like, I felt so many things and I've changed. And it's like, you haven't even started.
Yeah.
Like, you did the wrong trip. You went on the wrong trip. Like, you're not here. And I love just how her son is so poignant. Like you're bad. Like, you did the wrong thing and you're bad for it. She's like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
It's just, it's cool and I like it. It's also in my head canonically in the Pirates of the Caribbean universe because of Gore Verbinski, the director. He
Oh,
directed all the pirate movies.
that's
I
right.
think,
Yeah.
yeah. So in my head, I'm like, I would love if The Ring and Pirates of the Caribbean exist in the same universe, just hundreds of years apart.
I love this.
Let's write the crossover.
And we need to do it. We can. And we will. Thank you.
Yes. What else? Did I have another note?
I did have a note. I had 2
Yeah.
notes. One, I'm obsessed with the UFO light in the kids' room. I
want
did
it
try to
so
look that
bad.
up and try to find it because I was going to fucking buy it right the
It's
fuck
so
then.
cute.
And I could not find I could
Really?
not find it. I could not find.
Fuck.
So if you, listener, know what this UFO light is, just please slide into our DMs, send it to me. I don't give a shit. Like, I want to buy this light so fucking bad. It is so good. The other thing is in Samara's like barn loft that she lives in. I thought it was very funny because they're all there and like, oh my God, this is where she lived. First of all, climbing up ladders is terrifying. Climbing up ladders that are that high is terrifying. Also, don't fucking climb the ladder that close together, especially when nobody's holding the ladder and there's no spotter. Oh my God, that's all terrifying. You're both dead. Secondly, in that room, everything is like old and beaten down and like old timey and like, dirty and earth tones, right? And then in the back of one of these shots that they go to like a couple times throughout the scene, there's this fucking bright ass Rainbow Bright doll or something that is like clearly this was like bought 10 years ago and put up here, but it's like the only thing in that room that is like bright and colorful and it was so fucking funny to me. I laughed so hard. I had to rewind it. I did show David. It brought me so much joy. So thank you for leaving that in there. I really appreciate it.
We did it. We're
We're
back.
back.
We've come full circle, as they say.
In
Or as we
Ring
would say,
speak.
looking up from a trapped well on a bright, bright day. We've come full circle. The Ring.
Eric,
Uh-huh.
the 1998 Japanese original film, Ring, not the, drop
Yeah.
the, it's just Ring, thank you. Who was this for?
I'm going to say it's for women. It's for
Oh.
mothers and it's for those affected by the patriarchy and by misogyny at large. Because the more we talk about it, the more it's so clearly that, especially how clear the mother-daughter story in this one was. So that's why I'd say it's for.
Yeah.
Who do you think it was for?
Yeah, I like that. I'm going to just let that stay there. That's it. It's for women.
It's for women, yeah.
So few things are for us. So yes, this is for us.
Cool. Sweet.
Before we move on to the next question, Eric, I want to bring to your attention, you are on Zoom right now, and the ring from
Yes.
so Eric's Zoom background is the well shot from the ring, and it's perfectly positioned where his head is in the middle of it. And it looks like, like the Virgin Mary, or like, how she has like the like ring halo thing around her head. It's yours. It's your, and I'm kind of obsessed
I'm
with
here.
this image.
I'm glowing.
Okay. Anyways, did you like Ring? Did you like Ring?
I liked it a lot. I mean, I feel like I've put so much hype into it over the years because I really love The Ring, and so I've been waiting to watch this version. And yeah, I thought it was fantastic. I think it's such a great movie in all of its elements. It made me want to like go and read the book, the 1991 book that we were talking about, just because it's like, although I did read a synopsis of it today, and not the whole synopsis, but there's like a couple characters in there that are like, ooh, maybe I don't want to talk about that, because it's like a character who's like openly talks about like raping people, and I'm like, oh wait, I don't know if I need that. But I still might read it just for context, because I do think this is a good story, and if Ring itself is based on that, I'm sure as a whole it's probably pretty good. But I loved it. I thought I liked it so much. How about you? What do
Same.
you think?
I loved this movie. It is so good. I would recommend everybody to watch it. It's just really good and really fun. I'm way
Yeah,
into it.
it's great.
It's
I'm obsessed with it.
I was just so obsessed with like the idea of like, oh my God, this is so cool. The psychic thing is so cool, and this is so cool, and like, and then even like talking about it, like I loved it even more. Like, yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What about the 2002 The Ring? Was this new, interesting, or the same? Was this progressive, regressive? How are you feeling about this movie?
I thought it was new and interesting because it recontextualized the femme characters, the women in the story. But for the same reason that I find it new and interesting, I feel like it's also a little regressive because, again, it doesn't tie the loop fully on these themes in the way that the first one is so clear on. Like, there is no subtext, this is what's happening in the first one. Whereas this one's like really trying to get close to that with like the horses and stuff. But it doesn't really quite nail it. So, for the reasons being, these are new and interesting topics within the story, especially in pertaining to motherhood. I think the fact that it wasn't clear enough made it a little bit regressive because, on the surface, again, it does feel like this movie just hates women.
Yeah.
Like, without all of that, that's just kind of what it feels like. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad that we talked about it because you had a lot more insight in turn, like, because I first pass, I was like, fuck this. It was, I think it was new and like certain things were interesting, but it was pretty similar in terms of like beats that happened, but just those beats were just completely different, right? Completely recontextualized, as we talked about earlier. That made it feel to me more regressive because, like you said, they just needed to like tie that loop, or and not even like, I mean, all of that could have stayed subtext, like with the breeding and with all of that, but um but there just did need to be like one or two more like things to make that loop, right? Because like it felt like they just threw it out the window. They were like, "Oh, you know what? We can't tie this. Fuck it. They're both monsters." And I think that just like I wasn't a big fan.
Yeah.
I wasn't really rooting for anybody. I thought everybody sucked. The kids sucked. The mom sucked. The everybody sucks in this movie.
Yeah.
But I wasn't even rooting for like Samara or anything. I was like,
I
man,
know.
everybody sucks.
Everyone was bad.
Everyone
Everyone was like
sucks.
just shitty the whole time.
So, anyways, who was this for, Eric?
It was for, well, I'll say it was for my brother. It was for him running and screaming out of the theater. Scariest movie. Scared the shit out of him. He ran out of the theater. It was so scary. So that's what I think it was for. Who do you think it was for?
If I ever meet your brother, that's going to be like the only thing like I'm gonna talk about is like, so how was the ring? Oh my God, have you
Yeah.
ever seen
You
The
remember The
Ring?
Ring?
It's so wild. I'm gonna say that it was for that lamp by the bedside table. That was clearly the star of the movie for me. I literally did stop the movie and go down like a 15-minute Google rabbit hole trying to find that goddamn lamp. So
So
that's who this was for. Absolutely stole the show.
I'm going to send you something in the chat. I found an Etsy page.
Were you just looking for it right now?
I've been looking for it for the last, since you brought it up.
Oh my
It's
God.
not the same one, but
It's good enough.
It's
Oh, there's a little
close.
doggy in that one.
And it looks like you can change the figure who's being abducted, and you can change the color.
Oh my God, I'm obsessed. It does look a little bit like a mushroom when the light is on. Eric, I love you.
It is
Thank
so cute.
you.
These are so cute, and like honestly, yeah, you should buy one. They're so
cute.
When he was going to bed too, I was like, "Fuck, I want to be this kid. This kid is so sick with this lamp. Fuck."
Okay. Anyways, did you like this movie?
I really like this movie. I still really like this movie. I stand by it super duper firmly. I still think, like, obviously it's less scary the older I get and the more that I'm familiar with it. But as a whole, I still like the videotape concept and everything about it, what it meant to me as a kid, what it means to me now. I still love The Ring. I think it's so fun. I honestly, like, I know we don't really care about Naomi Watts in this movie. We don't like her character. I think she fucking slams it. I think she does such a good job at being this unlikable mother. It's so, like, I think she slayed. She's so good. I really like this movie. Did you like this movie?
Eh.
Eh.
Eh. I will say that I felt like such a big girl, such a big, like, brave girl for watching it. And I did, granted, watch both of them in the middle of the day with,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
the windows open and stuff. But even if I had watched these at night, I would have been okay because I'm a big, strong, brave woman. And I am no longer affected by these things
Yeah.
because I'm just so brave, and I watch so many scary movies apparently that, like, I'm immune to oh god, I'm not gonna say that. Anyways, I'm just big and brave, and I did
I'm
it.
proud
Look at me. Oh
I'm
my
proud of
god.
you.
Oh my
Thank
god,
you
I
for
did it
doing
so
this.
well. But yeah, maybe if I, like, do watch it again, I might like it more with, like, after this conversation. I just could not get over how much I fucking hated everybody
Yeah.
and how much I
Yeah.
wanted that fucking lamp.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Well, we've come to the end of another episode. Happy
Thank
3
you.
years. How
Yeah.
cool is this? And we're into another Halloween season, so stick
Ooh.
around for another scary episode, TBD, but you're gonna love it regardless.
We promise the next episode is going to be so fun. I'm so
Yeah.
excited for it. Thank you so much for listening for 3 years. We have
For
been
3
doing this for
years.
3 years. We love you so much. And
Ooh.
especially if you've been with us since episode 1 or since episode 25 or since this episode. Thank you. We love and appreciate
Yeah.
you. 3 years. Wow, Eric.
Can you
Oh my
believe that?
gosh.
I can't believe it's been 3 years.
I
How
know.
cool.
It's so wild.
Also, please don't forget to rate and review us wherever you get these cool podcasts, and follow us on social media. We don't post on it, but you can pretend we do, and we'll all love it.
If when we post, like, you do like that, then maybe, like, we will post more, because then it'll be like, oh my gosh, I guess I should. This is fun.
Yeah, we love
But-
feeling validated.
Oh my god,
So please do
validation is
it.
so cool, especially for somebody with OCD. Wow.
Ooh.
Okay, thank you so much for listening. Our artwork and music is by Eric Lefebvre. Editing is by Danny Barkley. And thank you again for listening. And thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Jess.
3 years. And remember, stay cute.
And stay critical.
Bye.
Goodbye. 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 This podcast has been brought to you by the NOTstalgia Network.
Visit thenotStalgiaNetwork.com for more.
Avatar: The Last Airbender is more than just a show.
It's a conversation of growth,
Of trauma.
Of culture.
of intention.
And of change.
The Momos and the Appas is a weekly conversational podcast from the NOTstalgia Network dedicated to discussing the Avatar universe as folklore, episode by episode.
I'm Eric Lefebvre.
I'm Dr. Amber Jones.
And I'm Jessica Tercero. Join us weekly as we dig into all things Avatar and Korra, including Uncle Iroh's hot bod versus his war criminal history.
Avatar Aang's well-meaning cultural revisionism versus Zuko's performance of toxic masculinity.
how ultimately Katara is the savior and the hero of the story.
Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, the NOTstalgiaNetwork.com, or wherever you get your podcasts.